A Beth Din, Bet Din, Beit Din or Beis Din is a rabbinical court of Judaism. In ancient times, it was the building block of the legal system in the biblical land of Israel. Today, it is invested with legal powers in a number of religious matters both in Israel and in Jewish communities in the diaspora, where its judgments hold varying degrees of authority in matters specifically related to Jewish religious life, antiquity and historical value. Commentators point out that the first suggestion in the Torah that the ruler divest his legal powers and delegate his power of judgment to lower courts was made by Jethro to Moses. This situation was formalized later when God gave the explicit command to establish judges and officers in your gates. There were three types of courts. The Sanhedrin, the Grand Central Court on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, numbering 71. Smaller courts of 23, called a Sanhedrin Ketana. These courts could pass the death verdict. These existed on two levels, the one higher in standing than the other. The main cities of the tribes had a court of 23. All towns of a minimum size had to have a court of 23, which was under the jurisdiction of the tribal court. The smallest court of 3 was found in villages with a population of less than 120 people. Any smaller court could not pass binding verdicts and only dealt with monetary matters. Participation in these courts required the classical semicha, the transmission of judicial authority in an unbroken line down from Moses. Since the destruction of the Temple in Jerusalem in 70 CE, or at the latest the abolition of the position of Nasi in 425 CE, the transmission of semicha has been suspended. Attempts in the 16th century to reinstate the semicha were unsuccessful. Rabbi Yosef Karo was one of the recipients of this semicha. The Mishnah and Talmud distinguish between ritual or criminal matters and monetary matters and impose different regulations for them, with criminal cases generally having much more stringent limitations. Courts ruled in both kinds of cases. Any question that could not be resolved by a smaller court was passed up to a higher court. If the Sanhedrin was still uncertain, divine opinion was sought through the Urim v. Tumim. Given the suspension of semicha, any Beth Din existing in medieval or modern times is in theory a court of laymen, acting as arbitrators. In practice they are given greater powers than this by the local takanot ha-kahal, and are generally composed of experienced rabbis. Modern training institutes, especially in Israel, confer a qualification of dayan which is superior to the normal rabbinical qualification. Even though normally an Orthodox Beth Din requires a minimum of 3 Jews knowledgeable and observant of halakha. In new communities and exigencies, providing a thorough search has proved unfruitful. Halakha provides that even one Orthodox Jew can establish a Beth Din, since every Orthodox community is required to establish its own Beth Din. Present situation. In Orthodox Judaism, a Beth Din consists of 3 observant Jewish men, at least one of whom is widely knowledgeable in Jewish law, to be capable of instructing the other members in any matters of halakha relevant to the case being heard. In progressive communities, women may serve on the Beth Din as well. In practice, a permanent Beth Din will consist of 3 rabbis, while a Beth Din for an occasional matter need not consist of rabbis. A Beth Din which handles cases involving complex monetary issues or large community organizations requires judges who require an additional semicha which enables them to participate in such a Beth Din and adjudicate complex cases involving highly technical points of law. A Beth Din is required or preferred for the following matters: validation of religious bills of divorce, kosher certification of restaurants and food manufacturers, examination of shosheim and the control of the shechita inspectors, conversions to Judaism with at least one member of the court being a rabbi who is an expert on the laws of conversion, supervising the building and maintenance of a mikveh, determination of personal status, the authorization and supervision of mohelim, questions relating to burial practices and mourning. A Beth Din is sometimes used within the Orthodox Jewish community to resolve civil disputes. with the Shulchan Aruch calling for civil cases being resolved by religious instead of secular courts. Modern Western societies increasingly permit civil disputes to be resolved by private arbitration, enabling religious Jews to enter into agreements providing for arbitration by a particular Beth Din in the event of a dispute. By this device, the rules, procedures, and judgment of the Beth Din are accepted and can be enforced by secular courts in the same manner as those of a secular arbitration association. However, the decisions of religious courts cannot be binding without the prior agreement of both parties, and will otherwise act only as mediation. Officers of a Beth Din. A large Beth Din may have the following officers. Av Beth Din is the most sar jurist who may join in the adjudication of cases or advise the presiding dayanim. The Av Beth Din will usually be a highly respected rabbi and posek, who can give responsa. Traditionally, the salaried rabbi of the local Jewish community served as the Av Beth Din. Rosh Beth Din is equivalent to a chief justice. He will be the senior member of a three-judge panel. In smaller courts, the Av Beth Din also serves as the Rosh Day and sits and adjudicates cases. A rabbinic judge may directly question and cross-examine witnesses. Chava Beth Din is an internal advisor to the court. He may bring specialized expertise to the Beth Din. Often a chava will be a dayan with training in secular law or science who can share his experience and perspectives with the court. For example, some B'tei Din that deal with issues of shechita may have a chava who is knowledgeable about veterinary medicine or meat science to assist the court as an expert witness.